Welcome to What's My Thesis. I'm your host, Javier Proenza, and today my guest is Charlotte Bastian in Berlin, Germany. We met through an exchange called BLA Connect, and you guys showed over here. I haven't had a chance to show over there, but I definitely am trying to build up our friendship so that I can. At least maybe have a couch to crash on at some point. Uh,
We'll
uh,
see how that works.
yeah. I'm just being transparent with my intentions.
Okay.
um, cool. So first of all, what did you think of LA when you were out here?
Yeah,
You
it
were like
was.
you were
Say?
you were exhausted because you were here for like 3 days.
No, we've been there longer. And I've been there 3 times already, I think, or 2 times. No, three. No, yeah, 3 times. The first time was 2018, then two or 17, I can't remember, but it's already the third time, and everything because of this BLA Connect thing.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and first we had an exchange partner, ESXLA. We talked about it. Maybe do you
Yeah.
remember?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
I did a show at their gallery before they closed down.
yeah. They closed because of the lockdown, I think, and all
Yeah.
the shit because of Corona. Yeah, but this was the first time when we showed together in the Torrance Art Museum. So
Oh,
there was a big come together of different project spaces from Berlin, artist run spaces from LA. So this was the first time we met a lot of people and the whole BLA Connect thing started.
oh,
So
okay.
yeah,
That was
I
the
mean,
first year for that?
yeah, I think was it 2018, I think, but I'm bad in
Yeah.
counting. But was before Corona. So it must
Okay.
be 2018 thing. Yeah. And then second time was 2020 and then again in 2022 last year. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I wasn't surprised anymore so much. But to be honest, I first thought, oh, LA, that's won't be my town. So much cars. I hate cars and everything. You have to go by car. And I've just seen the images of all the highways and thought, oh, how can this be a nice town? I was
Uh-huh.
really a bit and then I was really surprised how beautiful it can be. And you
Yeah.
can go by bike, and especially on the long way on the beach, you can
Uh-huh.
go from the is it south? Yeah, south to the north, and can go by hours only by car, by bicycle. So I was really surprised how beautiful it also can be. And it's not only cars, highway. I mean,
What part of town did you stay in?
different parts. I started as a 2018, my first time. I started in an Airbnb in Echo Park,
Oh,
which
okay.
is
So you have
beautiful.
been on the east
Yeah,
side. And then
Echo,
last time you were on Santa Monica or where?
yeah, Santa Monica, exactly. And then also more in the South, Torrance,
Okay,
because it
when
was
you
so
did
close
the
to the
the tab.
museum. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then yeah, and then in Hollywood. So I've seen different places,
Hmm.
and they are very different, so very interesting. So
Yeah.
and
No,
not
it's crazy. I mean,
yeah.
it is such a different city. I always like to think of it as it's like not even a city, it's a mega city because there's cities within LA County that have their own downtowns and they have
Mhm.
their own name, right? Like for example, Culver City is like in LA County. I'm pretty sure, right? Or no, maybe it's its own county. But the point being is that like if you stand on the hills and you look out at the city, it's first of all, it's huge. It like covers this entire valley and you see all the different downtowns. And when I first got here, I thought I totally missed like where the downtown was. I thought it was like closer to where to Culver City. And then I started to like actually climb up and see from like a high enough vantage point. And also I'm from Florida, so it's all flat there. So there is no climbing up a hill and looking down at the
Mhm.
landscape there. But that's very cool. Okay, so I wanted to ask you about you just were in Argentina in November, I think, right? And
Mhm.
you were documenting something that was really interesting to me. It looked like a not hellish, but like kind of apocalyptic landscape. I mean, there's beauty to it, obviously, but it doesn't seem like if it feels like maybe something ecologically not good happened there. Is that
Mm.
the case?
Yeah, that's the case because it is a village, a tourist village, which was flooded over 25 years by a really big salt lake. So it was a tourist area because of this salt lake, because it's this salty water is very healthy, and all the world traveled there
Yeah.
uh, for many decades. And but they did a mistake. Because there were a few years where they not had a lot of rain, so they bought some, is it canals and dams? I'm missing the English words for that.
Dam
But so
dam?
that the
Yeah,
dams,
yeah.
yeah,
So they dammed it
so
up?
that the water can't come, or that it's stuck in the lake,
Uh-huh.
so to say. Do you
Hmm.
understand?
Yeah, yeah, totally, totally.
Okay.
You should be more confident. We've had conversations.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
but sometimes I'm inventing just images. They're German words. I'm pronouncing them that in English and think maybe it's working, but sometimes you see in the face of your that's not what I'm trying to say.
Well, I
But
studied
anyway,
German in high school, so maybe
oh, you
maybe that's
do.
why it would help.
Yeah.
Um, okay,
So
so
you
then
can translate when it's getting too
yeah, in
confusing.
fact, if you're stuck, just say the
Okay.
word in German and I'll try
Okay. Yeah.
because I mean all like at least English. The thing about English is that it has so much German influence in it, right? So,
Mm.
we don't have compound words, but we've got words that are compound words from German, I
Okay.
think, probably. I mean, Matt, I made that up. I don't know.
Okay.
My
Yeah.
favorite word though is Katzenjammer,
Katzenjammer. You have
which is
this in English?
it
It's in English?
that's a hangover, right?
Not exactly. A hangover is ein Kater.
Ein Kater. What's a
Uh,
Katzenjammer?
Katzenjammer is more like, ooh.
That is a great translation. See, this is gonna work. Okay, so
Yeah.
they have the dam and they
But
try to sorry, go ahead.
yeah, I just wanted to finish the cat thing because
Oh yeah,
Kater is a male cat, so it's close to, and Katzenjammer is the female cat, or cats in general are the, whining cats. You could translate something like this.
oh.
So
Be-
maybe that's why you got confused, because
oh no,
Kater, the hangover.
someone as a kid someone used to
Yeah.
say it like all the time and he said that it was this was like not in I didn't learn this in school.
Okay.
No, it's funny how that stuff happens.
Yeah.
One time I was in an airplane with this guy that was like a huge German guy, and his like we were fighting with our knees to like pushing each other to make space for each other because he was so big, he was like bleeding into my space, and I was like, no, no, and he couldn't turn on the TV, and I said something to him what I thought was German. To him, and he was like, "Oh yeah." And then after that, it like I helped him out. He
Yeah.
understood by gestures what I was saying, but I thought I spoke German. And then I told my friend what my German friend or Austrian friend what I thought I said, and she's like, "You didn't say anything." So there's a lot in communication.
Yeah. But
um,
mostly it works perfect, like, with gestures or faces.
yeah,
So,
yeah.
yeah.
But I get it's a metaphor for whiny people that is influenced by cats, which is awesome.
Yeah.
Over here we have one that's a little bit more crude, but it's like you call someone a p word, which is like I mean, do I need to say the word for you know which word I'm talking about?
P, like penis, or
Well, the opposite of I'll just say it. Over here we call people a pussy.
pussy.
Yeah.
Yeah, I heard about it's
I love
it's
seeing
also a cat, right?
yeah.
Yeah.
So it's the same thing. But I really liked seeing your face light up when you realized what I was talking about. All right. Okay. So then the dam. Let's get back to the dam because the images are very beautiful. I want to encourage people to check them out. They're very there's like a spookiness to them. It's
Hmm.
broad daylight, but it still feels like weird and eerie, right? You're not like it's not dark in the woods. It's like open landscapes that the terrain looks pretty scuffed up and rough, right?
Yeah.
So then they tried to contain the water in, and you said that was the mistake.
that was a mistake. And then when there was a time again where they had a lot of rain, then in a during 1 week the water rises so high that the whole village was underwater,
Oh wow.
totally flooded. The village and some areas around the woods and everything. So also the graveyard and everything. Yeah, it was really horrible because then after a while, all the graves, all the bodies were, on the water. I think it was 1987. I'm not sure about the date because my brain is so small to keep everything in mind, but
Hmm.
somewhere then. And it was underwater, under this salty water, which has a kind of an it's for wood, for example, the wood soaks the salty water in it,
Hmm.
so that the woods are still, or the trees are still standing there when the water went back. Since 2009, something like that, or 2008, the water went back because it's getting drier and drier
Hmm.
thanks to the climate change. And now the water is almost like in the normal level before the flood.
But it's still
So
got the dam
yeah,
at dam level, not pre-dam levels.
yeah, I think the dam is already broken, but there is
Oh,
not
okay.
much water anymore in the lake because there were three lakes to be specific, and all this lake was a final lake, and then nowhere to go. So yeah, but for this you can be now in this village, which is already dry again, but it's totally destroyed by the water for being underwater for 25 years, something like that.
Uh-huh.
So it's interesting because, there
Are
are the
are there any
windows.
are there any standing structures at all? Or is it
Yeah,
all wiped out? Like their
no,
buildings
there
still
are
standing?
still there are still some buildings standing, and I've seen pictures and people told me it was, directly after, when the water went back, the buildings were more standing, and but it's falling apart. The more years are passing, the more
Hmm.
it's falling apart because it's very, the woods are actually very hard. The Because of those salty, I don't know how we would say Konservierung in German.
Conde
You
view.
know,
No.
Konservierung.
So salty
It
deposits, salty residue.
it
Are the
makes
trees
it harder. The wood makes it's getting harder by the wood.
okay?
It's very wide and very hard. But
But is it
for
petrified? Is it turning into stone yet or no? That's a different thing.
almost,
Almost okay.
almost. But
But is
for
they're still
stone,
alive or no?
no, they're dead.
Okay.
It's
All right.
everything is dead. So yeah.
Okay.
But they are standing. That's the interesting thing. Or most of the trees are still standing, and some, the frames of the windows are still standing, but all which is made from steel or metal, it's rusted.
Yeah, rusted. Yeah, you got it.
Yeah, and it's falling apart in the stone. So it's mostly the whole village is a ruin. You
Uh-huh.
only see the white trees, and yeah, but
That's
it's some.
crazy.
But you can still see the streets, and they opened it a few years ago. They opened it also for tourists, and they have some signs here. Here, this was a motel. Duh, duh, duh. Here was street. Duh, duh,
Uh-huh.
duh. And this, then we had also a tour guide, and he told us about all the stories, this about this hotel, and here this his, yeah, very interesting history of all the place.
That no,
And
that sounds fascinating. That must be crazy to be
yeah,
standing there and just like processing. Well, did people get hurt during the flood? I
no,
mean, okay, all right,
no,
thank God. They
yeah,
evacuated.
they had, it was took a week until the water came. It came very fast, but it was still time
Yeah,
to
yeah, yeah,
run,
yeah.
and yeah.
Yeah. It's not like
So
tornado speed of destruction.
no,
Yeah,
no, not
which is
that.
insane.
Yeah.
Um, so then let me get a visual real quick. What because I think I was picturing it wrong. The dam, you saying the dam broke. So then when it flooded, obviously the water level went above the dam, right?
Mm-hmm.
So the lake got bigger and covered more land.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And then where does the water recede to? Are there streams coming out of it or no? Is it
What
does it
comes
just
out?
So
streams.
once the water level starts to come down again, right?
Yeah.
Where's
Hmm.
that water going? Is it evaporating into the sky?
Yeah,
Okay, so
exactly.
that's the only way it has to get out.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
All right.
And
Really?
for this reason, it was 25 years underwater, the whole area.
Whoa. Okay, so it was
Yeah,
25 years because
25 years. Yeah.
2008
Also
the,
1986, I think, or 87, there
was
has
when it
been this flood.
when the flood was okay. I
Yeah,
misunderstood. I think
okay.
sometimes I'm
Even
paying
when I
attention to other stuff.
explain so perfectly to you in my
No, no,
perfect
no. You did
English.
explain it perfectly. Is that sometimes I'm like a little distracted while I'm interviewing because I also do other stuff. So like
Okay,
those little details escape me, even though I get the general thing. I
yeah,
apologize. Um,
no
yeah.
problem.
Well, we had a lot of fun during BLA Connect. I mean, I didn't mean to imply that you were tired every time you were here, but I remember that was like a 3-day stint that you guys came in, you installed,
Yeah,
and I tried to get you guys to interview to
true.
do an episode. I think you and Bettina both gave me the same expression of like, of like, no, there's no time, and that was like because I didn't realize how short of a time you were here for. I was like, you know, um,
Yeah, but it's mostly because of the stress, because
yeah,
our
yeah.
luggage was lost.
Oh yeah, yeah,
This
yeah,
when we just had to set up our works in the luggage, in the suitcase, which were lost, then it totally no problem. I'm relaxed, I have fun, I have time. But
yeah, yeah,
I was so stressed out about this because I was working so much for this exhibition, and then, the suitcase doesn't come. And so, you helped me to build something. What
oh
was
yeah,
it, for
that's
the
right.
VR
So, cause,
glasses?
yeah,
So it
yeah, yeah,
was, a very last minute, and then let's see if this is working. Plan B. So,
yeah,
but
yeah. That was
yeah, we
fun.
were stressed out because of this problem. That was
Yeah, and
really not
who was the artist that had to redo their whole piece, the paper one?
Julia. Yeah,
Yuria, yeah.
yeah.
Poor. What a frustrating experience. There were people that even didn't make it, right? It was what, 2021? So it was
No, last year.
no, it was last year, 2022. So but there was a period where, oh my God, there's like this helicopter. Can you hear it?
No.
Okay, good. Then I won't worry about it. It's just like so loud in the room. So if it sounds like I'm yelling, it's because there's a helicopter in the background. But yeah, no, that was around the time. I don't know what's going on with air travel right now in the US, but in 2022, I remember there was a period where there was like people were not I think they changed the rules for how long people had to isolate because it was going so bad for
Hmm.
the airlines because they needed people so desperately and like they were, so around that time, and there were members that were supposed to be in the show that got stuck
Yeah.
in another town in Germany, right?
Yeah, or in Norway. I think she couldn't
Oh, that's
leave
right.
Norway. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So yeah, it was also because of a lot of strikes, we in
Yeah.
whole Europe. So most of the
Oh, you
luggage
guys were having
couldn't.
strikes?
Yeah, most of the luggage was left in Paris and in some other towns. That was
At least your
mostly the.
art was in an artsy city though.
Yeah.
They could have sent it to like, I don't want to say a city and offend anyone. Be like, there's no art in Miami. I picked that one because I live there. Um,
Okay.
so okay, anything else you want to tell me about this space? Like, it really sounds like a fascinating thing. You may also have something else you want to talk about, which you're welcome to do as well. But that is crazy. Just the idea, like, it it makes. Do you guys have SpongeBob SquarePants out there
I
in
heard about
Germany?
SpongeBob. I've seen this when zapping the TV, but I never look at it. It's more for
Okay.
child, right? Or is it
Yeah,
for
yeah,
adults?
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
But it's he lives in a pineapple under the sea,
Uh-huh.
and then there's like a restaurant and stuff like that. So the more fun version in my brain is the idea of like sea people living underneath that that water. How high did the level like go? Do you know?
Yeah, because they had a mark, a sign on the water tower, and it was maybe 8 meters at least.
8 meters. Okay.
Yeah. I don't
I have
know, in
forgotten.
foot.
I
Uh,
I've forgotten that.
very,
Hey, you
very high. I show
the
you. It's
over your
so
head. How many?
three times over a normal space is
Okay.
high.
All
Could you
right.
imagine that?
Yeah, yeah,
Something like
yeah.
that.
Sounds good. I like that
Yeah.
you did speak English well that time, and I still didn't understand you when you said meters.
I
You used the Queen's English, not the American one, and I was like, what?
yeah. But I mean, in Britain, they still use the foot thing as well,
Oh,
don't
they
they?
do. Yeah, I don't
I
know.
think so.
I don't
Or
know.
are they? Or they going back to the food thing because of the Brexit, maybe
I don't know.
because it's
I can't
too
speak for the.
international to use meters.
Well, I mean, the UK is traditionally known for being trolls. There's an Eddie Izzard comedy special where he's like, all of Europe do this, and England's like, well, I don't want to,
Yeah.
which is exactly like the attitude, you know.
Hmm.
England was a Brexit before Brexit, but right, they never adopted the euro
True.
and all of that. Um, well, okay, cool. And then what can you like one of the other things that I like to get a sense of for people that listen to the show is spaces in different cities. Now, Berlin is notoriously a very popular art destination for people even in America that go.
Mhm.
That's why we do BLA, or that's why BLA Connect exists and stuff like that. Um, what's the art scene like there? You're part of a collective named Scotty. Are you
Mhm.
guys? What do you guys do? What's your ethos? What's all of, or what's your philosophy?
Yeah, of philosophy. So we are artist run space in Kreuzberg, Berlin Kreuzberg. I don't know if you know this
Is
area.
that's a
Very
neighborhood?
famous, of course, neighborhood. And we have this space already since 2017,
Okay.
seven, not 17, 2007. So
Hmm.
that's a crazy thing. And yeah, we started as a mixed group. Now we are only women, but it's nice
Hmm.
to work only with women, I have to say. It's not a problem. And we give opportunities to different artists to show in our space and or to other curators. So we have almost every year a screening in January where we show some movies in our window, and every year open call when everybody can take part for a special theme. So we have themes for a year, and then yeah, every artist, we are all artists, and every artist has an opportunity every 2 or 3 years to have a exhibition and do whatever you want. But
Hmm.
in the other time, we give that space to guests.
Okay.
So we are working as hosts mostly.
Hmm. And then the members are, how many members do you guys have?
10. We are now 10.
You're now 10. Is it crazy expensive? There was some artists that were visiting for a talk that I attended, or a discussion, a group discussion. And they were talking a lot about how over there's a huge gentrification problem. So
Mm.
the neighborhood that you're talking about, is it like, are there art galleries there because it's a little run down and cool? Like, what is the neighborhood like? Describe it to me so we get a sense.
Yeah, we are very close to a very touristic area,
Okay.
but it's still not high touristic. It's not maybe 15 meters in the other direction. It's getting more viable, and in our area, it's still kind of quiet. It's still okay,
Mhm.
and we are lucky because of the owner of our house is a guy who wants to support us as artists.
Mhm.
He is an old hippie, I would say. So he doesn't
German
want to make
hippies.
or doesn't want to make profit. He's an old, we say, alt 68er from the 68s, where the people, all the students were on demonstrations for change and everything. So
What were they
he
protesting specifically?
protesting. as mostly against the old after World War or after the Nazi stuff, the
Mhm.
parent generation and all this conservative politic in West
Okay.
Germany. So
Okay, yeah. All right, that makes
yeah,
sense. Because like we always forget how complicated that history is, right? You guys were split, and then did you you were obviously alive when, or I mean, maybe that's presumptuous when the Berlin Wall came down. Sorry, were you alive? Do you remember it?
yeah,
Okay,
I was
what
already 15,
you were already
so
15.
very much alive. Yeah.
What was that time like? That is insane. That must have been crazy. Um,
Yeah, very interesting and crazy time because I'm already originally from East Germany, so from
okay.
East Berlin,
Oh,
and
really? So
yeah,
you lived the what is it as bad as everyone says it was? Like it sounds pretty terrible from the Western from American perspective.
yeah. Um, I wouldn't say no, but it's there are different sides. You can't say it wasn't that bad that everybody says, but the after when the war came down and I had my first travels to, and met some West German youth people, and they were telling me, and I heard in school you hadn't to eat anything and you had no toilet paper, and then you couldn't do this and you couldn't talk to anybody because you go to prison, blah blah. And I was like, I don't know what you're talking about. This is not my life,
Yeah, yeah,
you know.
yeah.
And so there
That's
is a
sort of
lot of
what I figured, right? It's
yeah,
there's always so much more stuff heaped on top, and it's like the suffering is there, guys. You don't have to
yeah,
right? It still wasn't good. You don't have to be like, yeah,
yeah.
there's a woman over here that is a YouTuber called something Pak whatever. She talks about like what it was like in North Korea, and every time she talks, I'm like, "You're full of shit, dude," because she's like, the children would eat the rats of the people that
Mhm.
were eating the eyes, and it was just like, and then if you really like start breaking down what she's saying, it doesn't make any sense. But she's huge on YouTube, so like
Mhm.
because people are hungry for that tragedy porn, you know,
Yeah,
like
tragedy porn.
and
Mm.
they want to feel like they're good because they're fighting for something and they're aware of something, you know. It's crazy.
Yeah,
But thank you, because I that is enlightening to me. I did not know that. Or
yeah.
I've
I
never
mean,
had a chance.
it's part of the whole Cold War thing that, of course, everybody from West Germany or from the US has to think, oh, the East, and it's so bad and so bad people and everything, prison-like mostly and poor and I don't know. So there are some parts that are obviously true and there were prisons and everything, but it's has nothing to do with all the
Yeah.
stories which people told me about my life. It was really like, okay,
Oh,
interesting.
yeah. That is wild. Well,
Yeah.
I relate to that a lot as a Latin American person,
Mm-hmm.
because there are actual horrors that happen in Latin America, like horrible things to this day, you know, like
Mm.
coups that are like Hillary Clinton coup Haiti and Honduras and all of that, while she was under President Obama. And it is insane because all you hear about him is how bad, like all people think about, like the idea of a dictator, Latin American dictator is so funny to me. Like Hugo Chavez, when I was a kid, I thought he was a bad person because I lived in Miami and all the Cubans hated him because he's a socialist, right? But when as I grew up, I started to hear from like Venezuelans that were poor and of color, and I started to become aware of like, oh, like they really love this guy because he helped them not be poor anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And so yeah, that now I look back at the speech he did at, I think at the UN, where he was like, it still smells like sulfur here, but talking about George W. Bush, and I'm like, man, that guy was brilliant. But yeah, I totally, it's so crazy. So much, so people are programmed with so much propaganda that like even
Mm.
I have a hard time knowing what's real and what's not. You know what I mean? But
Totally. Yeah.
yeah. Well, I mean, we don't have to
Yeah.
keep talking about your trauma. Is there something else you want to talk about? I mean, I'm stopping myself from barraging you with questions. Actually, one more. Um, how did Germany get split up into East and West Germany? Was it a military takeover by the
No,
Russians? No, it was split up after the war, right?
after the war, because there were the Americans, the English, the French, and the Russians who, or the Soviets, you must say,
Mhm.
to be correct. It wasn't only Russia.
Yeah.
And yeah, and then, because the west part from the west, I'm missing the word. You know what I mean.
Yeah,
The
yeah. The western part of the country, Western
Yeah, yeah,
Party.
but I don't even know it in German. But um, there became, I would say, capitalism. That was there were a Marshall Plan. The U.S. Pushed the oh God, these words, the economy with the
Uh,
Marshall Plan. Those They put a lot of money in it, and they had a
yeah.
different money than in East Germany. So
Uh,
then in East Germany, of course, Soviet Union wanted to have a kind of a socialism, and so then there were two governments, and then it was already, I think, 63 or 60, yeah, 63, I guess, when the wall was built. Before that was still traveling, a lot of black markets, things, because of this totally different systems, of
yeah,
course.
yeah.
And yeah, so then they decided, okay, we make a cut here and we will build a wall. And so after that, it wasn't allowed to anybody to travel to West Germany or to Western countries anymore, except
Mhm.
of the very old people. So my grandma and my grandfather could travel, probably because they think, yeah, old people
Are not
won't
gonna.
leave us.
Yeah, yeah.
They won't leave us. They come back to their families and everything.
The
Yeah.
and then how does that so like was it split? Was East Germany just split, and then Berlin was down like it cut right down Berlin?
Yeah.
Okay. Can I tell you how dumb I was as a kid? I used to think that the East Germany was just that part of Berlin and the wall was there. So the wall, the wall is only in Berlin?
Yeah. I
Okay,
mean,
let
there
me
was a border, a very strict border between East Germany and West Germany. Also, you
uh-huh.
couldn't go through it, so it was very dangerous. And there was a shooting order, to say that. When
Okay.
someone tries to get over the border, then people
They
could
just shoot you.
shoot, yeah. But the wall exists only in Berlin.
And then but you guys could travel to Soviet countries. No
Yeah,
problem. Okay.
yeah.
What was the coolest one?
The
Did you get to
coolest,
when you I mean cuz I'm thinking about like my childhood and I got to go to like cool cities like Paris and stuff like that. I
mhm.
want to know what the hot spots for Soviets were. Like what was like
I mean, they have, especially Soviet Union, which is where also Armenia, Georgia, different countries which are not only Russia anymore. So,
yeah, yeah.
I've been with my parents on the Black Sea and in Georgia.
Oh,
Is it
wow.
Georgia, Georgian? Is it
Yeah,
right
yeah, yeah. Yeah, you got it
translated?
right.
And it was really fascinating because they have palm trees. You really think, oh my God, I'm really in a different world. So it was not probably how you would imagine Soviet Union. It was
Yeah, yeah,
really,
yeah, yeah.
we were on a bazaar, on a market, and they had melons and tropical fruits and yeah, totally different lifestyle, of course. So it was and sitting outside on the palm trees, and it was very impressive for me as a child,
Uh-huh.
so, and I've got all the people in the Soviet Union, also the Russians, are very friendly to children. They love children. It was very different to Germany, because we Germans don't love kids so much. And or we are not the friendliest people on the planet. And I really liked to be there, because everyone's like, oh, I couldn't understand everything, of course, but you get the gestures, and they made me presents, and they were like, oh, she's so smart and so beautiful. And I was the best kid in the world, obviously. So I liked it there. Yeah, it
Yeah.
was
Cool.
interesting. But when I get a bit older, like maybe with 12 or 13, we've been the first time in Budapest in Hungary.
Oh
And
wow.
this was a really cool town. And they were more influenced influenced by the West. They had some stuff over there we couldn't buy in Berlin.
Uh-huh.
So, when you get older, you want to have the cool stuff, some
Well,
blinky
if
hair
it's
stuff,
banned,
or
it's the coolest stuff. Like if it's not allowed, what's cooler
yeah,
than that?
especially. Yeah.
Did you
So,
did you okay. I'm sorry to keep throwing stereotypes at you, but
oh,
did you guys like were jeans like a hot commodity? Like were things like that? Like what got in? What got in that you guys that were like objects of like, oh my God, this is the coolest shit ever.
yeah, the interesting thing is I still notice that I'm not so into brands
Yeah,
because I
okay.
wasn't grown up with brands and I really don't care. I know some names now, but it's still not that I think, oh, wow, the hottest shit. And it wasn't, it was just like if someone had a package from West Germany with some old clothing, that was just cool because
Oh, okay.
it was some stuff from West Germany. It doesn't has to be a special brand or something. So it
Uh-huh.
was totally enough, and of course that it fits and it looks kind of cool. But I can't remember that any of my friends in school or someone had a thing about a special brand. But
Do you know what's
yeah.
fascinating about that? Over here, there was a pair like probably around this time, and you hear about it a lot in hip hop, Lee patches. So what people would do is they would buy there would be pants that were a brand called Lee, not Levi's, Lee, Lee, and
Mhm.
it became so popular and so coveted that people started getting fake patches and sewing them on, and it's all over hip hop. Like everybody's like, that's a way to insult someone in a rap song where
Mhm.
they're like, you got your Lee patches, and for the longest time I didn't really know what it was because I was I came to the country later, I came when I was 12.
Mhm.
But yeah, that's really fascinating. That what about cinema? What kind of entertainment did you guys watch? Is there like a history of like East German, Soviet film that you guys got to experience? Like this is like a pretty big divide, and I'm like, it's blowing my mind. I'm so sorry. I did not know you were. I did not know you grew up in East Germany. That's so cool. I mean, not a great experience, but it's so cool to like actually meet someone. I mean,
Mhm.
I'm sure it was traumatic. I don't mean it like it's
No, it
cool that
wasn't traumatic. I have to be honest, it wasn't traumatic to me. I know there were people which had traumatic experiences. I
yeah, yeah.
never doubt that, but it wasn't for me. I really had a good childhood. Of course, there were difficulties in schools, especially when you grow up and have your own opinion and think about things and don't want to get everything what they tell you in school.
Hmm.
But it was already the late 80s when I was in this special age, 14, 13, 14, when you get your own head, or maybe a bit
Hmm.
earlier. And it was possible at that time to discuss with teachers and not to go in prison or something like that. So it was already a time where you can feel, okay, something is changing and something has to change because everything will gonna fall apart. So it was already in the air. So
Hmm.
I'm pretty lucky that I'm late born, that I, could could go all the way from this starting in, the discussions in school or with my parents, and then to live through this, to all this change. Yeah.
Hmm.
But the other thing you asked, I forgot about it.
Cinema.
The cinema.
And just
Yeah.
culture, right? Because like that's such an important tool of American oppression to the world, right?
Yeah,
Like
cinema.
we send out the most right-wing stuff so that everybody like loves capitalism and everybody thinks guns are cool. It's crazy.
Yeah. We had some good East German movies,
Hmm.
so which I was interested in to go to the cinema, especially when they started to talk about difficulties in the society. It was more, like through or in between um, the lines. I don't know if
Hmm.
this is the English
Yeah,
phrase
yeah.
as well.
So they're not saying things outright, but there's implication, and people like,
Implications,
yeah,
exactly. And
yeah.
then it get it interesting, and yeah, and so, but of course, the English films or the American films, I watched E.T. in cinema, or Beverly Hills Cop. I
In the
remember
cinema.
that in the cinema. Yeah, we had some
So some stuff would
American
get in.
movies. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah,
I
and there were
wonder what.
huge lines on the cinema. I remember that for Beverly Hills Cop.
Yeah.
So
I mean, it was great.
great success in East Berlin.
That's
Yeah.
cool. That's cool. Yeah, I mean, that is fascinating. Like,
And another thing, Javier, I played in the East German movie when I was a kid.
really, as an
So
extra or an actor?
as an extra, what is it?
Extra's a background actor, so someone that
Ah,
doesn't have lines, or
okay, extra.
uh, or
Yeah,
or
kind
or,
of.
or did you have lines?
I had lines.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
I
So then you
wouldn't
weren't an extra. You were a featured actor.
featured. Yeah,
I
but
actually,
for the
I'm embarrassed because I don't think that's a term, featured actor. And I live in Los Angeles, and I'm like, I should know what the actual term is. But so, and
yeah,
then,
I wouldn't say actress. I would say I was a kid playing with some adults, but it was a lot of fun. So, but
yeah,
for this, I got some impressions of the whole scenery, and there are the studios in Potsdam Babelsberg. I don't know if you heard about Babelsberg, where
is that your
they
Chinachita?
it's kind of a Hollywood in close to
Yeah,
Berlin, our
yeah,
tiny Hollywood. They filmed with Marlene Dietrich and some famous people over there. So, and then the DEFA, this is a East German company, DEFA called. They worked there too in the studios, and the studios are still alive. They're still making films over there.
yeah,
Also international productions.
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, so you made me think of this because in Italy, in Rome, Cinecittà is where is their Hollywood, right? And it's like
Hmm.
it's I mean it's cool. But they had a very specific film movement that like the neorealism. Are you familiar with
Hmm.
Antonioni? I'm sure you are because you're a very
Yeah.
cultured person. But is there is there like a move, are there cinema movements, East German cinema things that like that existed? Was it that cohesive? I'm like I'm trying now. I want to see like what the underlying propaganda of those movies are. Do you have like a good movie recommendation that I could maybe try to check out? Because I'm fascinated. Antonioni, I watched The Adventure, and I was like, oh my god, it was so much and so riveting that I was like, I need to stop watching this because I need to digest the first half of the movie, because all it is just like people like it's sort of abstract, and it's all about the interactions that these people are having. There's like the rich characters are moving around the city, and there's all these dramas that are popping up around them as they interact with people, right? Like a jealous wife of a baker gets angry at him for talking to one of the characters. You know, that those little things that, but they're all very much about the common man, right?
Hmm.
About like because of that socialist bent that came out of coming out of Second World War in Italy. It's
Mm.
so that whole genre is all about that. And there's a really beautiful moment where they stop at this town, and it's a ghost town, and they're like, who built this? Why did they build it? And I'm like, oh, the mafia built it to make money off of it. You know, and that's kind of like what you were saying about the implication there. Like, if you don't know Italian culture, there's a question
Hmm.
asked and you don't necessarily understand what is being highlighted there. But
Yeah.
everybody in Italy that watches that probably goes the same thing I did. Oh yeah, that's like
Hmm.
it's a scam.
Hmm.
Does cinema have something like that? Like, is there are there movements of German cinema, of socialist cinema that I'm not aware of? I'm sure that like people know, but I just don't.
Yeah, I'm not an expert really. I don't know if there is a name for this, but I know I could recommend you a film. It's called Solo Sunny. It's
Solo Sunny.
about it's about a woman who tries to be a singer, and that was pretty famous. And I think they won also a prize in West Berlin at the Berlinale.
Hmm.
And they're more, this movies about the normal life, the normal people. Of
Slice of
course,
life. That's
we
exactly
had
what I want to.
no Beverly Hills Cop, something like that, or some fantasy
1980.
stuff.
Awesome.
Yeah,
Perfect. That's exactly what I want to see. That way I don't have to keep asking you questions. There's movies that I can look at.
yeah. No, I
But
think
I'm
this is a nice movie. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. No, that's really, really cool. I'm definitely gonna check that out for sure. Um, yeah, I think it's really interesting, especially, like we've referenced the Second World War and all of the things that radiated out of it, right? Like the Cold War is a direct outcome of that.
Mm,
And just how important that, like it's hard to understate that it was a world war. Like it was the world, and the world was never the same. And it's interesting to me how valuable Germany was to America, that we
hmm.
rebuilt you guys to such a crazy extent that you guys have a better quality of life than we do now. You have health insurance that we gave you. You have all these
Yeah,
things.
I'm not sure. Is this all the part of America? I think it's also part of the competition between East and West. I I'm not sure if would West Germany ever would build up such a good health insurance and all the
Oh,
social system if there wasn't be the other side and this competition which country is better for the people. And because the socialism, it was
uh,
always the thing that, yeah, okay, we have a little bit less money, but we are here for the people, and you can bring your child to daycare when it's little, and all these things, and not that women have to be housewives and stay at home to take care of the kids and everything. So that this was also built in West Germany. I think it's not only because the
no,
US
no.
pushed some money in there. It's probably
You're
part
you're
of the
you're
Cold
calling me
War.
out on my Americanized bullshit. That's what I was telling you about the propaganda. You don't even know until you have a
Mm,
conversation that you're full of shit.
I
um,
wouldn't say that.
no, I know.
Yeah,
I am comically hard on myself
okay.
when it comes to this stuff. No, that's crazy. That really is interesting. Um, yeah. What
You're speechless.
No, I know what the question is. I just won't want to be careful how I ask it,
Yeah.
because I want to be sensitive to your parents, but your parents lived through the Second World War, right? And then they also lived
No,
through the no,
no.
they were
I
born.
mean,
Oh
my
no, they
mother
were
is born, I'm
sorry.
not that old.
No,
My
40,
mother
40 my mother was born in 45. I thought she lived through the war too, or she was born after it. So,
after, yeah, right after. I mean, the war ended 45,
yeah, yeah.
right? 45. So, and my mother, but my father, you're right. My father was born in 39. So it was during the war. And he used to live with his family in the former East Preußen, East, I don't know how it's called, but it's Poland.
Okay.
After the war, it became Poland, and they were refugees. The whole family from my father were refugees during the war, or end of the war. So when he was really a little boy, 5 years or something like that, they were on. And my aunt is still alive. She tells me the stories. It was a tough time. They had to go by train in the winter time. Like no heat, no food, and they're over days. The train, for animals, this kind of
Hmm.
trains.
Oh yeah,
And then they arrived as refugees and nobody wanted them. Like,
mhm.
no, it doesn't matter if they were
Are
also
they
from Germany or
are you
not.
Is your family of Jewish descent?
No,
No.
they
So
were
there's
refugees because they were, in a part of big Germany where wasn't any more German after the war, because then it was Poland.
oh, okay, okay. All
So
right. So he was escaping proper Germany to go to the part of that is now Poland.
exactly.
I'm understanding it right? Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, that's interesting. I and then
So
sorry, go ahead.
yeah, you wanted to ask something about my parents. So my mother hadn't seen anything because she's born 45, so the war was over. But my father, he was a little boy and he lived all this. He had a rough youth because he and his family, they were refugees in a small place, a small village in Brandenburg, close to Berlin. And, they were poor and they had nothing and nobody, all the farmers were
Mhm.
very horrible to the refugee people. So yeah, he really had
No, that's
to
tough.
to suffer from the war.
Yeah. Well,
But
I'm less interested what I'm curious about is their timeline now because we talked about yours a little bit, right?
mhm,
And then and then how you guys meet in the middle because you have been westernized at this point and they're to some degree have lived in the east, right? For longer than you. And like what do they do? What is their like? Have you seen another Western thing that I have you seen Goodbye Lenin?
yeah, of course, it's a nice
Okay,
movie.
it's a great
Yeah,
movie. Yeah. How
yeah,
how do you feel about that representation? Because that was the first time I saw a movie where like it seemed kind of chill, like the way that they that like
hmm
it made East Berlin seem more innocent to me, right?
hmm
And my understanding is that Lenin is not Stalin in terms of like being a
true.
good person.
Yeah, yeah, true. Lenin
uh
was already dead,
yeah, yeah.
before
No, but I'm saying
Stalin.
like that people loved Lenin whereas like people hate Stalin.
Hmm
Yeah.
Yeah, but today I would say nobody loves Lenin anymore because everything which comes from former Soviet Union is like, oh, you know, the Russians, and it's also you.
Has that
The,
been has that been all along? Like after the wall fell down, people didn't like Russians, or people were like there was
yeah,
like xenophobia against Russians. That is really interesting.
yeah, I would say it's so hard. So it wasn't, but it was. I mean, it's still during GDR times. It was every time it's like more, especially for the youth, are the cool West, the
Uh,
cool Americans, and the Russians boring and
yeah,
all,
yeah,
you know. But when you get to know them, like me and my parents but that not everybody had the possibility to get to know real Russian people, then oh, they're not monsters. They're not like in
yeah,
the movie Rocky or something when it's always so bad Russians. But yeah, of course, when the wall came down and they
You're talking
lost,
about
they're
Dolph Lundgren.
no
Sorry,
about
I
Nene,
interrupted you. You just made me laugh with your impression of the Rocky movies. I think you're talking about Rocky 5.
maybe.
That is a
I just
propaganda
remember
movie.
that I've seen some movies and I thought, okay, that's a Russian guy. This
Yeah.
kind of how
Well,
you see it. Okay.
and Rambo 3, the Al Qaeda, the Taliban are or no, actually, it's not even Al Qaeda. I think it's just the Taliban are like, oh no, the Mujahideen. They give a shout out to the Mujahideen in the end of Rambo 3. So like all of those movies are insane. So it was
It's
the Russians that won the war. Right?
they're
Like
not
without the
alone.
Russians, what's that?
Not alone. They
Yeah, not
didn't.
alone,
Yeah,
but I
yeah,
mean, if you look at the numbers of how many people died, how many Russians died compared to everybody else,
yeah.
it was pretty brutal. And it was really when
Mm,
he started to go to Russia and try to invade that it did not
yeah,
go well for him. Like if he had
true.
just stopped
Mm,
You know, the British would have been like, oh, it's fine, we do this all the time, you know. But he went into Russia, and Russia was like, no, fuck you guys.
mm, yeah. No, it's really, it's, yeah, also very sad history when I think about it. And
Yeah,
it's still, they were treated so badly, even when also the Soviet Union had so much to suffer because of us, of our
yeah,
history. So,
yeah, yeah.
yeah, difficult, but yeah, but now it's getting difficult and more difficult
Like it
with
now,
the
now politics are getting, you feel that?
yeah,
In
yeah,
what
yeah. I
sense?
know. I heard of some Russian people in Berlin. There are also Russians living in Berlin. They were now having a hard time, of course, because of the war between Ukraine and Russia.
Hmm.
And it's so sad that people don't understand that you can't put everybody in one pot and say, "Oh, these are the bad ones," and these, and
Yeah,
make every person personally
responsible.
responsible for that. So that's
Yeah.
stupid.
I
Yeah.
mean, I remember during the war in Iraq that I live going to Europe and talking to people who were like, the Americans suck. And I was like, hey, a lot of us,
The same.
like, people don't understand that there is dissent in these countries. They think that the only place that it happens in America. But like, honestly, I mean, people don't even know how many military bases. Everybody that talks about China and Russia as being a threat does not recognize that we have 870 some ish military bases in the world. And there was recently a thing about what's happening in Taiwan. And there was like, uh, they showed a graphic of like, of, of where all the bases were. And they were showing it as if like, well, look, China is right here where America has all these interests, instead of saying like, China is here and America is encroaching on their interests, right? Like it's so
Mm.
crazy the way that all these like propagandistic things happen. And you guys, I mean, you guys must be going through some stuff after someone we don't know who blew up the Nord Stream pipeline.
True. Yeah. But to be honest, it wasn't that bad. I mean, everything is more like, oh, now end of the world, and now we can't heat anymore, and blah blah blah. But the government handled it pretty well. So I think,
Well,
I
the
mean, it's
reason,
it's very much more expensive now.
but the reason that it was okay
Mm.
is because we, but now we're selling oil conveniently. No, we're selling natural gas to you guys. A pipeline blows up, a new market opens for America. Who knows how that happens? But yeah, I mean,
Mm.
totally. And it's more expensive because of the disruption. So like, it's now you guys are getting gouged this way we get gouged by gas prices. You know,
Mm.
when OPEC is like, screw you guys. Um,
Yeah.
no, I mean, it's actually, speaking of which, it's speaking of Second World War, the world order is changing completely. Where like,
Mm.
you've got Lula in Brazil telling everybody to like abandon the dollar. The dollar's been the standard after World War II because it kept countries more stable from inflation in their own countries, right? So that's why we did the gold standard dollar thing from there. And in the 70s, we went off the gold standard. We've been off the gold standard a couple of times, and then we just never got back. And now what they can do is just print insane amounts of money. The money that's going to Ukraine is not money that people have paid in taxes. We are giving so much money to Ukraine that it is money that they're printing. And there's like a weird trick that the banks are playing with keeping interest rates low, and like basically the solution to all the problems in America are, you guys are just going to have to be poorer, you know, citizens, as like nobody else
Mm.
makes any sacrifices. But it's really crazy. Oh, the last thing I wanted to ask regarding your relationship with your family, like that point of view, do you like, do they see the world differently than like maybe people of their same age? Like for example, definitely they see the world differently than my parents, who are not technically not part of the baby boom, but they are immigrants. They're refugees who immigrated during the baby boom, or of that baby same generation. And like the baby boomers are a completely different thing than people born in, like, let's say Africa, that of that same in those same years, right? So what is the equivalent, like, do you know what I'm saying? Do you understand what I'm asking?
More or less, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, you can take it from there. And
I
I don't
take
have
it
to
from
finish
your
it.
gestures.
Yeah,
I
yeah, yeah. So what is that? What is it like to be a person who's gone through these processes? You go, especially with your father. He's a refugee. He go
Yeah, my
he you
father
know
is already dead, so
no, oh,
he,
he was. I'm sorry.
yeah, he died in 1886. So
Oh,
he
wow. He
didn't
died when I
know
was
how
6
the.
years old.
Oh, you're so young, right? Yeah, I was already 12. So you're 6 years younger than me.
Yeah.
Okay, good for you.
Hey man, I'm older than some people and it sucks too. I look at
Happens.
them, I look at them,
Yeah.
I'm like, God damn it, if I knew what I knew now know now back then, about how little
Yeah.
anything matters. Um
Mm, yeah. No,
so
but
yeah.
talking about my father, yeah, he died before the wall came down, so
Okay.
he
You
didn't
never got to
see how it.
experience that.
He got some because in 1986, 1985, I think maybe a few years before, we or the Soviet Union had Gorbachev coming,
Hmm.
and there was already the talk about perestroika, glasnost, everything. So he knew, okay, something will change. He knew it, and he had, you know, he was very much into politics, but he believed in socialism. He was almost blindedly in love with the idea of socialism and that the people, have a better life. And
Yeah.
so he wanted to believe it so hardly. I think it would be very, very rough for him to see the wall coming down, and that especially, which is already affecting my mother, but she is another kind of person. She is more, she can take it, I would say. She
Hmm.
wasn't so much into politics, but that the people tell you from, West Germany or wherever in the world, oh, you had such a bad life, and everything what you've done in your life and your work is not worth anything. I mean, it's very short sets like this, but more or less it's the same problem, that they feel a bit worthless compared to West German
Hmm.
lives. So,
Hmm.
and I guess it probably would have killed my father because he believed so much in a better world, and that everything makes sense at the end, even the bad things, and they have to be for a reason. The wall have to be there to protect us, and he wanted to believe it, and he
Hmm.
did not want to see all the bad parts. So I guess, when everything was changing, it was probably would have very tough to
The,
him. But my mother, she had a really good life after the wall came down. She traveled with her new boyfriend to all the countries she couldn't travel before.
that's
And
nice.
so she knows, she has also the thing, okay, I I know I've done something. She worked at the TV as a scenographic, how do you call it?
Cinematographer?
Yeah,
The
something like
camera
that.
camera person?
No, no, no. The
What
set
do they do?
dresser. Is it set
Okay, yeah,
dresser?
yeah, yeah. That is a job
Set
for
dresser.
sure.
Yeah, that's a job. So, and she knew, okay, I worked my life, and I know people, and we had a good life, and so, and then to hear, everything is bad, and like you say,
Mm.
you're traumatic, and she doesn't feel it like that, but she also sees now from a different perspective. Of course, not everything
Mm.
was right, and it has to changed, and she also has the good parts of the change
Yeah.
now.
Um,
Yeah.
what is her favorite city that she visited? Do you know?
Do I know? No, I don't know.
You don't know. I'm just curious what somebody who
Yeah,
lived in East Germany. I mean, it's fine. I'm just explaining the question because I think it's an interesting thought. Like maybe you should ask her at some point, because
yeah.
to me it's fascinating. Like what when you have never been to the West, and you finally get to go, what has the biggest impression on you? You know,
Mm.
like so anyway, I mean, I just think it's an interesting question. We don't even need an answer to make me satisfied, but just to ponder it is fun. Um, this is really, really cool. I really appreciate you sharing all of this. This is like very personal. As a German, I feel like I've gotten under the the aloofness. I mean, you've shared some very, very private stuff with me. I really,
Oh,
really, really appreciate.
hopefully nobody will watch it afterwards. I think, oh God, what I've done.
No, no. I mean, I think it's very humanized. I think you talked about I think you talked about some stuff that I'm definitely fascinated, and I'm sure a lot of American people would benefit from hearing, right?
Hmm.
I think like in terms of educating the West on the realities of what the world really is like. I think that you've done a great job. We've just done it by sharing very personal stories about your father and all of that. Like that's where I feel like maybe I went too far in asking. So I hope you're okay with it, but I feel like it was pretty tame. You know. And yeah, man, I mean, wow, like what an opening of my perspective. Thank you so much, because that is just so crazy to even imagine. Like the only thing I've seen about it is all from the Western perspective. Do you know about the CIA and their involvement in promoting art out here? Have you heard about this at all?
No,
So apparently there's a book, I think it's called Finch or something like that. I haven't read it, but basically people like famous writers like Susan Sontag and all these people. And it's not that crazy because at the time, or like back in the 60s and whatnot, there was there were government programs that funded art that were made to like make people aware how poor people were during the Dust Bowl, right? The farms, and that's where like Lee Freelander and a bunch of famous photographers got their funding and got their start, right? They would go out and you see these photographs of people that are destitute that are American, right? And I kind of think I've lost my point. What were we just talking about? Oh, the
um,
CIA. Okay, so
yeah.
Susan Sontag and all of these. I don't know. I don't think Lee Friedlander, but Susan Sontag was one of the people that stood out. She apparently worked with the CIA, and part of this
Hmm.
program was to make abstract expressionism very popular, make it look like, hey, look at how free we are to express ourselves. I'm paraphrasing a paraphrase of someone else's paraphrasing, right? So I haven't read the book, so take this all with a grain of sand. Someone told me about it at a party and I'm repeating it. But when I did look into it, I was surprised by some of the people that I always thought were like, you know, real independent thinkers taking part in a program that is like in a Cold War program, essentially, to
Hmm.
promote American culture as superior, as the West is better, we're free, and but it's also just very capitalist. I think that
Mm.
the idea of your father dying because capitalism won is a very, very valid thing. I feel that as an American trapped in capitalism, that is a very, very like I'm like, yes, I totally get it. If my
Hmm.
dream of this thing died, it's different. So yeah.
Yeah, but it's also, I think it's also to see that you had, the wrong ideas. Not
Hmm.
only that the other thing wins that you don't want, it's only to recognize, okay, fuck, I believed I had really wrong ideas about
Yeah.
how my country is. And
Yeah.
there
Yeah.
are other things I didn't want to see, but I have to accept them. I think this is also part of this feeling, oh my God, he could have died because of
Yeah.
this.
Yeah.
Not
Yeah.
only because it's also because of the self
Denial.
um,
Yeah.
denial. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah. And
Or,
and and I mean, I totally I think that over here we have that too, like where people are um like they're in denial about how horrible the system they benefit from is, right? Like
mhm,
I try to not be, but it makes me kind of sad, so I need breaks. But the reality is that like over here, like if you look at how people treat each other in France during these protests about retirement, and you see how like people over here, they've got us all hypnotized into thinking that we're all alone in a way that it makes me very jealous of the French.
Hmm.
You know, that is like one of the most I think may give it 20 more years, we'll see. We'll see if they can keep the machine spinning over here. But the corruption machine, but it is very strange. And now we are having censorship promoted by the people that are on the left, and
Hmm.
they're like, yeah, no, we got to keep this as a safe space, and they don't realize that that's how it starts. They don't realize that the government protecting you is a bad thing. It's always a bad thing, and it never stops at just, keeping hate off of the internet and all of that. So we, like you said, we're also in a very strange place, and you guys are kind of fucked because we threaten you. Like if Germany doesn't do what America wants, we're like, oh, okay, well, fuck you. We're gonna make your lives miserable. you know.
Yeah, or not helping anymore. It's already, you
Yeah.
know, we Germany couldn't survive probably when it's on its own.
Yeah, yeah.
So
But you're also an economic powerhouse. So they don't want you and Russians getting together. That's the whole Nord Stream pipeline thing. If you guys are getting if
mm,
you guys are dependent on them instead of us, then we can't cut off your oil or your power. Like,
yeah,
they had a pipeline, they could just turn it on and off. That too.
yeah. Mhm.
Anyway, I think we should end there, but thank you again. Thank you so much. I really enjoyed hanging out with you when you were in LA. And now that we've gotten a chance to sit down and have a conversation that isn't all of us running around and trying to drill holes in walls, it's really nice to see that, like, hey, this is, what I relate, like I said, I also, like, I'm from a country that also has a tragic past, and
Mhm.
my tragic past is also tied to America, right? And the horrible things that America has done. Your case, maybe it's a different like imperial influence, but empire is very, very strong and very,
Yeah.
very brutal. And Americans don't study Latin American history because it would make them sad. They don't know anything
Mm.
about us. So cool. Thank you so much. And anything that we can promote for you, you are at Bettina. Sorry, you're not Bettina. You're at Charlotte. I just got German names in my head. Charlotte Bastian at on Instagram, right? Is there any
Charlotte
underscore?
Bastian com, because there are so many Charlotte Bastians already that I have a
Really?
com at my end of my name, like my website,
Okay.
but without the dot. Charlotte
Okay.
Bastian com, like one word. Yeah.
Okay. And
But
then
I'm not so much often on Instagram, I have to say. But anyway,
but
I
people
see
should go
when
there
so
to see those photographs you took while you were in Argentina that are dope.
okay,
Because that I
true.
did, you were posting those then, and that's how I
Yeah.
knew that you had some fire stuff to talk about. Because I'm like, dude, that
Sometimes it's useful to
yeah,
do it.
yeah, yeah. And then you have a website,
Of course, Charlotte Bastian, or it's Charlotte, like Charlotte, so it's a kind of an international name.
Charlotte. Yeah,
Bastian, Bastian.com. .com, yeah, correct. Or
Like
.de.
Bastian Schweinsteiger.
Exactly, like Bastian
You watch
Schweinsteiger.
football?
Sometimes.
What's your
But
team?
I have no team. Maybe I have a little sympathy for, not sympathy is not the word. Yeah, egal. Union Berlin.
Union Berlin. Like, so
FC
Union Berlin.
Union Berlin. Yeah.
Yeah. Wow.
But
All right.
I don't know any players, or don't
Well,
ask
you
me.
know the
It's just
national
because
team.
they're from Berlin. I just know they're from Berlin, so I like them a bit.
Yeah,
But
but
I
you
don't
do
care
know
so much.
you are as at least savvy enough to know your players are your German players from the national team,
No.
right?
I
Bastian
know some. Yeah, Bastian
Schweinsteiger, uh
Schweinsteiger.
Mette.
Difficult.
Yeah, I Schweinsteiger. Say it.
But he
He's old.
is
Yeah, I
already
haven't.
he's old. He's not playing anymore. He's talking in TV. He's
Yeah,
moderating some stuff.
and then
Yeah.
you have Mete Ozil. Has he retired yet?
Who?
Ozil? Never mind.
Özil? The Turkish one. Özil, Mehmet Özil, you
Yeah,
mean?
yeah,
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 he retired. I haven't
yeah.
seen him in a while. Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, we can talk German players. I just let's end the recording and then we can have a nice little chat that's not recorded and say goodbye. Okay, because that's basically what we're doing right now.
Okay.
Zoom recording. Well, thank you so much. We will be back next week with another guest and another topic. We'll be back with another guest with another topic that may or may not be art related. Okay.